On November 30th, 1824, the first shovel went into the ground for a project which would be one of the greatest engineering achievements of its time. To help me explain how significant this moment in history is, local historian Tom Russell. Tom, good morning.
Good morning.
And Heritage Committee Chair of the City of Thorold, Anna O'Hare. Anna, good morning.
Good morning.
Tom, turning of the sod. What does that mean?
Well, it was the beginning of a new adventure. I mean, William Hamilton Merritt had a vision, he had a dream, and he had a dream to link both lakes with a canal. Many people felt that it was impossible, that it just wasn't, feasible. We're talking about an escarpment. We're talking about a 300 plus difference in level between one lake and the other. So it wasn't something, and you have to think back and kind of take yourself back to that point in time and think about the equipment they had to remove the soil, to just dig a hole. It was very, very difficult. And so to kind of answer your question, it was his vision. That's what it was. And turning of the sod was just the beginning of that vision.
Tom, I don't think any of us were there. So who was there?
At the turning of the sod, there was actually 34 members of the Welland Canal Company. And the Welland Canal Company was a private company headed by William Hamilton Merritt. And George Kiefer, who was the first president of the canal company, he was the one that actually turned the first piece of sod for the beginning of the canal.
Now, the first route didn't connect the lakes, is that right?
No, it didn't. The canal company, again, they were limited in resources. And if you look at the peninsula, and if you look at the overlay of the peninsula, they tried to find the easiest way. And the easiest way was to use existing water sources. So the concept was to take the canal to what is now Port Robinson. At that time, it was just a hickory bush. And the reason they were taking it to Port Robinson, because the Welland River was there, and they wanted to use the Welland River as their primary water source. Have the water run from the Welland River to what is now Allenburg, down the escarpment, and eventually out into Lake Ontario.
But they ran into a snag, is that right?
They ran into several snags. One of the snags that they ran into was the depth of the canal that they had to dig. There's a ridge between Allenburg and Port Robinson. They had estimated to be about 34 feet. It turned out to be about 55 feet. In addition to that, they had landslides, mudslides, quicksand, a number of things. But when they reached Port Robinson, and they were approximately within about 10 days of having the water from the river run into the canal, they hit a large sinkhole. One of the canal employees were killed, several others were injured.
There would not have been no locales or anything back then, so this was very much a risk back then.
Very much so. And it was also all privately funded. William Hamilton Merritt was an amazing man. He was very well educated, very, very smart, and he was able to go out and literally go into the US, go to Europe, and find funds for the canal.
Now, you told me too that the government didn't get involved or didn't purchase it till 1841. And what people don't know is that the Erie Canal, which goes through New York State, that was done first, so he must have drew some sort of ideas from that. Is that right?
The Erie Canal was one of the reasons, it motivated him actually, and motivated people in what is now Upper Canada, and they were concerned about the Erie Canal being so close. And also, you have to remember, 1824 was only 12 years after the end of the War of 1812. And so there was still very much a concern of another invasion from the US. And they wanted to have a canal that was inland. That was the idea. They wanted to move it away from the river if they could. Well, getting back to the canal in the first part, they didn't have a lot of money. And so they looked at the Welland River and the Niagara River as using that as a part of the canal. So the first canal actually went to Port Robinson. They locked down into the Welland River. The ships would then follow the river to the Niagara River and then to Buffalo and eventually out into Lake Erie.
1824 to 2024. Anna, I didn't forget you, but we had a party, is that right, to celebrate this waterway. Tell me about it.
Yes, we did have a party. Tom and I actually were at an event last February and were approached by our mayor, who said, nobody's planning anything for the 200-year anniversary of the beginning of the construction of the Welland Canal. Can you guys think of something to commemorate this occasion? So we started thinking at first, expecting this to be a very small affair. And as soon as we approached people in historical research, the Seaway, politicians, there was immediate significant interest.
So it wasn't small at all, right?
No. By then, once we realized this was going to be much bigger than we had thought, we basically just thought, if we're doing this, let's do it right. And started preparing basically from the spring on. The Seaway was incredibly generous in their support, and so were others, like the publishers of this magazine.
Before we get to this magazine, just overall, how did it go?
Fantastic. We had, at the time, Tom just said, at the time there were 35 members of the Welland Canal Company present. In all, there were 200 spectators in 1824, which at the time was a big crowd in these parts. We thought if we get 50, we'll be happy. We had 200, which was just absolutely amazing.
That's great. Now you were talking about this this article, and Tom, tell me about this. You're in some sort of a magazine, Canadian Antiques and Vintage. Tell me about it.
The article, what we decided to do, and the folks that own and publish the article are friends of mine, and they were very generous, and they offered to publish this at no charge to us. And so I collaborated with a young lady from Brock University. And what we did, we sat down and looked at it and did the research, and we co-wrote the article. And so then it was published. And it basically tells the events leading up to that particular day and what happened.
Well, Anna and Tom, thanks for being here. And here's another 200, 300, 400 years of the canal, right?
Exactly.
Awesome.
Yes,
I hope. And it was Alicia Floyd, by the way, that was also the co-author with me. And I hope the canal succeeds and we're very successful, and someone is here 200 years from now talking about the 400th anniversary.
If I was a gambling man, we're going to be here.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, folks.
Okay.
Thank you.